You're listening to ADHD Support Talk. ADHD Support Talk is brought to you by addclasses.com. Visit addclasses.com to sign up for helpful online events and resources today. Hello, I want to welcome you back. I am your co-host, Lynne Edris, and I am a veteran productivity and ADHD coach. So for more than 15 years now, I've helped overwhelmed professionals from around the world learn to take control of their time and accomplish what they intend with ease so that they have more fulfillment and free time for what matters most to them. You can learn more about me and what I do at www.coachingadvantages.com. And when you text the keywords my quiz, that's MYQUIZ, no spaces, my quiz to the number 33777, you'll get complimentary access to my online productivity quiz to identify your productivity type and get to the root of what gets in the way of your productivity and follow through so that you can stop struggling and take control. Today, we're diving deep into the science and strategies behind enhancing focus using sensory input. So to make sure we're all on the same page, I want to make certain that you understand that although I specialize in helping adult professionals and entrepreneurs improve their productivity, my job is not to help you improve output just for the sake of getting more stuff done or crossing more stuff off some list each day. That's actually quite the opposite of what I do. So my job is to help my clients learn to get the right things done more easily and more consistently so that they have more fulfillment and more freedom for the things that matter most to them. And I do that by helping you learn to make the most of what I call your three most precious resources. So your three most precious resources, as I call them, are your time, your energy, and your focus, or your attention. So when we can learn to use those three most precious resources, your time, energy, and focus, more effectively and efficiently, we have more of them left over for the people and the things that bring real meaning to our lives. That's how you create freedom and fulfillment. And that's what I want for all my clients and for each of you. So in today's episode, I'm going to focus on the last of your three most precious resources, your focus. So learning to manage your focus or your attention and allocate it efficiently and effectively leaves you with more left over, as I often say, more bandwidth left over for, again, what matters most to you. It's important to remember that the deficit in ADHD isn't actually a deficit of attention itself. It's a deficit in our ability to regulate our attention. And in today's rapid-paced world, maintaining focus can be challenging for anyone. But for adults with ADHD, this challenge can often feel insurmountable with all the information and input and stuff being fired at us from all directions every day. It's no wonder we can be exhausted at the end of the day with little left in the tank for the rest of life. What to pay attention to next, what to do next, what's more important, email and Slack and inboxes and social media and all the things, all the platforms, all the devices are constantly vying for our focus, right? So learning to take control of yours so that you can allocate it where it matters most is what this is all about. So the brain thrives on stimulation, especially the ADHD brain, seeking stimulation, looking for what stimulates it, what's interesting kind of at every turn. So while it may seem counterintuitive, harnessing specific types of sensory input can be a game changer in terms of productivity and concentration. So for those of us with ADHD, sometimes the secret lies not in trying to eliminate all distractions, but in thoughtfully eliminating the distractions that detract from what we're doing and adding the right kinds of sensory input in. So I want to share some kind of tested, science-backed, experience-backed, proven strategies to help you increase your focus and productivity by adding sensory input. And before I dive into like tactics and strategies, I want to make sure you understand the why. Why does sensory input play such a pivotal role in focus, especially for those of us with ADHD? So again, the brain specifically, and especially the ADHD brain, constantly seeks stimulation. Sensory inputs, whether auditory, tactile, or even olfactory smells, provide that needed stimulation, creating an environment where our brains can lock onto tasks more effectively. It's kind of like giving the part of your brain that wants to look for something else to focus on a side job to keep it busy, so the rest of your brain can commit to the task at hand with less distraction. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to focus on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different kinds of sensory input that can be really helpful in improving focus. So the first one is movement. So our brains adore movement, especially with ADHD, but it's more than just the physical activity. It's about stimulating your brain in the right ways. Have you ever noticed that you might think more clearly while you're walking? So doing things like incorporating walking meetings, where my old boss used to say, walk and talk, can give you that combination of movement, and if you're lucky, fresh air, and can lead to more productive discussions. If you can't have a walking meeting, sitting on an exercise ball or in a rocker or swing can enhance focus. Movements that cross the midline, like twists or touching your right hand to your left knee, anything that crosses one side of your body over to the other side of your body can enhance focus. So those are important kind of movements to do, and to make sure you're getting stretching breaks, right? To invigorate and provide a quick recharge, and to help you get those movements that improve your focus. I will often run up and down the stairs a few times when I need help with focus. It gets my blood pumping a bit, and it definitely clears my brain and helps me focus when I need it. Or I'll just stand up in my office and do some twists kind of side to side with my arms outstretched to clear my brain and help to engage both sides of my brain and improve my focus. So number one was movement. And the second one is music and sound. Some of us will do certain activities better in silence, while others may find different background sounds beneficial in certain situations. Now, this is super individual and also super situational. So you want to experiment with different sounds and different kinds of music in different scenarios. So you can try white noise music, or some people like Baroque music, or different kinds of classical music for different kinds of concentration. The consistent rhythm or hum of background noise or white noise can kind of envelop your brain in a little bit of a focus cocoon, if that makes sense. I have different playlists on my phone for different kinds of focus, and sometimes I'll help clients figure out what works best for them so they can do the same thing. For example, if I want to stay tuned in, pun intended, to writing, I have a playlist of songs I find helpful for me for focusing on writing. One of the keys that is important for me is that the music is very familiar. If it's not super familiar, like to the point where I know every word and every note, backwards and forwards, if it's not that familiar to me, it may actually draw my focus to the music, to the instruments, to the lyrics, instead of helping me focus. So it can become a distraction rather than an aid for focus. When I'm doing something that uses the language processing part of my brain, again, like writing, the music I'm listening to really needs to be extremely familiar. Songs I know, again, every note, every word, without having to process them. Once I add in a music that is not super familiar, even if it doesn't have words, something that I don't know so thoroughly by heart, or any kind of talking or commercials or ads or any other kind of chatter or talking, it will pull too much on that language processing part of my brain and distract me from what I'm focusing on. And I'll talk more about that in a bit, but it's really important to experiment and find what works for you in certain scenarios. Again, it's going to be something that is very individual, and it's something that is going to be situational based on what kind of activity, what kind of processing you're using, what you're focusing on, etc. Okay, so music and sound, that's number 3. Or number 2. Number 3 is aromatherapy. So that's smells. Scents have direct roots to our brain, and they can impact our mood and our concentration. So if you need a boost, try strong scents like peppermint oil, burn a citrus scented candle. If you need to calm yourself or reduce your anxiety to focus, some people find scents like lavender helpful. Again, experiment a bit to see what helps you. So number 3 is scents, smells, aromatherapy. Number 4 is fidgeting. Fidgeting can be really powerful, right? Most of us were encouraged not to fidget when we were kids, but the truth is that fidgeting can give your brain something to do, allowing the rest of your brain to focus. So doodling, fidgeting with different like toys or different things that have different feels and different sort of a tactile experience. I have different things that I carry in my work bag. I have these stretchy, I don't even know what you call them. I always call them critters, these stretchy, really stretchy rubber, like almost gummy, but not quite, toys that I found in the party favor section at my local box store like a million years ago. My kids used to love them, and I found that kind of rubbing on them helps make it easier, or stretching them helps make it easier for me to pay attention in meetings. They're all different kinds of sensations and tactile experiences that help each of us a little bit differently. I've had clients over the years keep little piece of like ribbon, clients that like that soft kind of feel of a velour. Some clients like the kind of cool, smooth texture of satin, but keeping some little pieces of fabric or ribbon. You can keep them hidden in your pocket. You can keep them hidden in your computer bag, whatever. Everyone else doesn't need to know what you're playing with or what you're touching. But do things like doodling, taking copious notes. Those are all different kinds of fidgets and different kinds of fidget activities that can provide part of your brain something to do, so that the part of your brain that's engaged in whatever it is that you're focused on in the moment, keeps busy. Okay, so fidgeting is number 4. Number 5 is change of venue. That's what I always call it. So while routine is vital and our rituals are important, sometimes our brains need some novelty. So a simple change of scenery, a simple change in your work venue can give a big boost to focus sometimes. So you can change your workplace occasionally. Again, sometimes that novelty your brain is seeking can be rejuvenating to your focus. You can simply change the direction of your desk, reorient what's on your desk, or reorient the direction that you face when you're working on certain things. Sometimes it doesn't take much to tweak your work environment, just enough to add the stimulation you need to help you focus. Okay, so that's number 5. Change of venue or change of scenery. And then number 6 is proprioception. And this is something I don't think we hear enough about when it comes to managing ADHD. It's something occupational therapists may help kids with ADHD learn to improve, but many of us who are adults could benefit from some simple strategies that are really focused on proprioception to help us regulate ourselves and our focus at times. So if you're not familiar with that word, proprioception is our sense of our body in relation to our environment and the space around us. So that sense of our body, our physical body in space and in our environment, plays a role in our awareness, plays a role in our self-regulation and our ability to focus. So providing proprioceptive input, input that is centered on proprioception, can be helpful for regulating energy, can be helpful for regulating focus, especially when we're transitioning from one kind of activity or one kind of focus to another. So these are things that are like weight-bearing activities, things that involve pressure, pushing, pulling, jumping, things like chair, wall, or regular push-ups. Carrying heavy things, lifting weights, resistance activities like pushing or pulling, like vacuuming or sweeping, yikes, working on a stress ball in your hand, that's a kind of proprioception. This is where things like weighted blankets or vests or holding or carrying heavy things can be really helpful. Anything that you push, pull, or apply pressure to something or to your own body can be helpful. So jumping, jogging in place, bouncing on a therapy ball, even oral activities like chewing gum and blowing bubbles. right? Balance activities like yoga or working on a balance ball or standing on one leg or standing in the T balance position. If you don't know what that is, you can go Google T balance position. There's so much more we can add to this, right? These, like, anytime you add sensory input that doesn't conflict with what you're trying to focus on in the moment, can be helpful. So changes in temperature can help. Strong flavors or tastes can be different kinds of sensory input that can help us with focus, like really sour things or extra strong minty gum or candies. But also things like air typing, which is one of my personal favorite ways to help me focus, by providing a little extra sensory input when I'm listening so that I can stay tuned in. These activities can help to orient our bodies, but also kind of center and regulate our minds a bit as well, and give our brains a foundation to help us focus when we need it. So it's really important to remember that your mileage may vary, right? What works for you is going to be different for you than it is for anyone else. And what works for you in one situation might be slightly different for a variety of reasons than what might be helpful for you in another situation. So I want you to think of these strategies as starting points. And I hope they give you some ideas or remind you of things that have helped you in the past, right? You need to experiment, you need to refine, play, tinker, as I always say, keep that experimental mindset, and always be compassionate with yourself as you learn and figure out what works best for you and for your brain. And I'd love to know what you find most helpful. So feel free to comment on the podcast, on the episode page, on the ADHD Support Talk website, or on YouTube, and join us in the ADHD Support Talk Facebook community as well. I love to hear your thoughts. I love to hear your insights, what works for you, and answer any questions you might have as well. So I hope you'll join us, and I hope you'll connect with us. If you find the podcast helpful, if you find this episode or any other episode helpful, please, I would ask you, if you do, to give us a 5-star review on iTunes. The more 5-star reviews we have, the more people can actually find us, the more other people will find our podcast and get the ADHD support talk that they need. I hope you found this helpful. I want to thank you for joining me today. And as always, I appreciate your attention. Until next time, harness your own unique strengths for focus and have your own focused and fulfilling days. That's what I want for you today and always. Thanks again, and we'll catch you next time on ADHD Support Talk.